Welcome, everybody, to our last session of Tuesday at PDMI 2025. I'm very lucky to be on stage with this group of gentlemen today for our Media Outlet Roundtable. My name is Tom Haire. I'm the Chief Content Officer of the Performance-Driven Marketing Institute, easy for me to say. And we're really excited to have this crew here for what is always one of our most popular sessions at the show. Again, we'd like to thank everybody for being here, our badged attendees, our sponsors, our members. It's very important to us to have you all here and take part in this event fully and completely by buying a badge and by taking part in sessions, in networking events, in our meeting halls. So thank you all for being here. That said, our education session is brought to you by Blue Water. They have a quick message to share with you, so we'll go ahead and play that now.
At Tommy John, a lot goes into our underwear before you do.
But now I've found my bubbly side with SodaStream.
Philips Air Fryer is the original and the very best.
So again, thank you to Blue Water. You can see them in the meeting hall after this event. The meeting hall will be open for a couple more hours after this event. We urge you to stop by, grab a beer, shake some hands, and greet everybody who's in there. Media Outlet Roundtable. How will brands and buyers be served with the best opportunities to maximize success on both linear and streaming? What are DC marketers asking for from their media partners? And how are you guys responding? That's really what we're here to talk about as we head into 2026. Today we're excited to welcome Marty Dehler, Executive Director of Performance Marketing Sales at Disney, John Rinaldo, Manager of Specialized Demand at Dish Media, and Sean Robertson right next to me, Vice President SMB Growth at NBCUniversal. Guys, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Thomas.
We appreciate it. Can you each take a quick few moments to just give a little 30-second on yourself before we get started?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Marty Dehler from Disney. Nice to see you all. I've been at Disney I'm a boomer in Disney. Used to work at ESPN back in the day and then started at Hulu in 2015 and have evolved into the performance marketing here at Disney for the last 8 years. So excited to be here at PDMI and excited to be on the panel with all of you.
Thanks, Marty.
So I'm John Rinaldo, General Manager at Dish Media. The organization that we work on is called the Specialized Demand Group. So performance is part of that, political, local, some other lines of business, which is kind of cool because you can take some best practices from other lines of business and apply them across the board. I'm also a boomerang, was at Dish for 10 years, spent a few semesters abroad, and then returned about 2 years ago.
Hi, I'm Sean Robertson over at NBCUniversal. As my role says, I am one of the VPs in our small to medium business growth division, which includes direct response. We have offices across the country with representation in each. One of my counterparts here, Matt Lee, not to embarrass you, walking a little bit late. But our real focus is on looking at those smaller brands that includes direct response and right-sizing offerings for advertisers of every size across the portfolio, which includes linear, digital, social. And I'm very happy to be here. Thanks a lot to you, Tom, for all that you and John do for the marketplace.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you for having these sort of panels that allow us to speak to the audience. Thank you for showing up this afternoon between us and drinks. And excited to share some ideas today.
Yeah, we are the only thing keeping everybody from a cocktail, right?
Right.
So wonderful to have you all here. I'm going to start with kind of a scene setter question. I'm going to start with you at the end, Marty, and bring it back towards me.
Sure.
As we look ahead towards 2026, the top two things that you're ensuring their agency and brand clients are considering about the evolving television landscape?
Yeah, so at Disney, we live at the intersection of live, sports, and streaming, right? So it's baked into our DNA. We're really focused on unifying our offerings, and that's across both consumers and for advertisers. So on the consumer front, there's so much content out there, and there's so many different ways to get all the things you want. So whether you want to watch a big live event or the big water cooler show or just some library content, like how do you make sure that the user experience is great and people are getting the content that they want? And so as a company, we're going to continue to evolve, and we'll dive into that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. And then from an advertiser standpoint, it's about simplifying the buying process. On the back end, we're building out our tech stack. We're doing so many things to make every impression count. And so how do we help you guys and help advertisers understand across all the content that we have to make that more powerful? So those are two things we're really focused on across those.
Great. John?
Yeah, so evolving media landscape. Obviously, there's a big shift happening. It's been happening for years. Midpoint of 2025, streaming overtook linear in terms of time spent. But an important thing to keep in mind is that like the shifts in viewership are not translating directly to the opportunities to reach audiences. So only about 16.5% of ad impressions are available today in streaming, whereas over 44% of time is being spent there. So we're focused on finding ways to reach those light linear viewers, folks that are spending less time in ad-supported environments, and finding ways to reach them when they are, visiting us. And then second would be the importance of data, right? Not all data is created equally. Working with deterministic data that are based off of authenticated users and real names, real email addresses, things like that make a big difference in modern media strategies when it comes to targeting, attribution, through the entire customer journey, being able to measure and attribute that back to exposures. So we're working with top-tier data, deterministic, not probabilistic, and we see a big difference in strategy and outcomes.
And from the NBC side, first, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize we started as a company owned by a tech company, right? If you look at Brian Roberts with Comcast, I wouldn't say NBC started that way, but if you look at our focus over the last 10 years, it's been about two big things, right? Content, particularly in a live environment, sports and news, and entertainment plays a big part of that. But then we have our consumer-based business that allows us to be in front of customers in their living room. So how do we create platforms that are ad-supported first, right-sizing those and creating these entree points for advertisers of all sizes to connect with that? Because at the end of the day, the content, which is king, is really just a proxy for connecting brands to audiences. And when you do that in an entertaining, authentic way that's well-balanced, but for advertisers of all sizes.
Right. John, I'm going to go to you first with this one. What? Well, I'd like to congratulate you, too, for being the last holdout with Haire on this panel, so thank you for being here. We appreciate that.
We're holding on.
Very jealous.
We're holding on strong.
Hold strong, my friend. Specific offers or opportunities that agency and brand clients are seeking from you right now in CTV and streaming, particularly, what's hot to test right now?
What's hot right now? Obviously sports. Sports is like front and center. The reason for it isn't as obvious, and it took me a little while. I've been in this business for a long time, and I didn't quite fully understand why sports is so hot. I always kind of thought, why would you want to spend a premium CPM on a very highly desirable placement when you can likely reach those audiences in other places for a lot less, right? But the fact is you really can't. So many folks, as mentioned before, are spending time in non-ad supported environments, and the only time they're diving into an ad supported environment is to watch a live sporting event. So we get a lot of requests for it. It makes a lot of sense, but we're also diving into other ways to do that. So how do we reach light viewers or folks that are not consuming a lot of ad supported content without having to carry the live sport premiums, et cetera? So live sports, something we get asked for all the time. We're finding creative ways to package up our Monday Night Football, college football, basically every sporting event on cable. So that'd be first. And then second, I'd say, would be the emerging ad formats we get asked about a lot. So things like pause ads, which are a unique way to get in front of consumers, outside of the commercial potted video spots. Live sports, emerging formats are the top two we get asked for today.
Yeah. Sean, I'm going to go to you next.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of John. I think ad innovations on our Peacock platform, and not just Peacock, right? When you think about our CTV universe and our whole infrastructure, it's based around all of our IP and how do we connect brands to those audiences at every endpoint, right? Mm-hmm. Whether they're on vMVPDs or if they're on the Peacock platform. So we use ad innovations like pause ads, but we also do spotlight ads, and we're creating platforms that take you beyond that 15, 30, 60-second creative. The other thing, doubling down and double-clicking on live sports, we are going to have 37% over the next 6 quarters. We're going to have 37% of all the must-see live moments. I'm talking everything from the Thanksgiving Day Parade, the tree lighting in Rockefeller Center, to the return of NBA, which we're really excited about. That's going to be on broadcast cable, but also very big on our Peacock platform. We're also going to have a little thing called the Super Bowl next year, followed by the Olympics, right? So it's a very big month, and we're going to have the most epic February ever. That's something that's branded. We have a drinking game internally that every time we mention February, you got to take a shot. But all jokes aside, it's really creating those must-see moments that allow advertisers, when they have time-sensitive executions or opportunities, right? If you have a sale for an automotive, or if you're a medical device company, and there's a window of time that you have to reach viewers, not on a DVR or something that's time-shifted, but in real time. How do you get those measurable sort of opportunities to connect brands to audiences? I think those are the two things that people are really focused on, and how we're shaping our portfolio to be right-sized in the right sort of way.
Right. Marty, what about you?
Yeah, definitely some similar answers to you guys, but one place I wanted to share that we're seeing a lot of success, especially in the streaming side, are sponsorships in alignment with our IP and content. One thing that's going to stand out is more and more people are streaming, and there's more optionality for streaming. Content's going to be king, and what we found, especially in the performance space over the last several years, and really the last year to two, is when brands come in and understand that they can align with content through sponsorships, they get such an elevated lift. It's not only in their brand lift, but they're seeing performance metrics increase. They're also seeing incrementality and finding new audiences. So in last year alone, we sold over 130 sponsorships as a performance team. Now, typically at Disney, you'd think, oh, that's general market. Those are the big advertisers wanting to come in and align with shows. But that ability to really stand out and align with that content has been huge. And we love to see those performance brands do it. And it's something we're going to double down on to next year. The second part, along with you guys, we're seeing that interactivity and optionality in their ad formats, pause ads, QR, shoppable ads. It's really important for the performance space. Linear TV and streaming look alike, but the ability to layer on data and the ability to be interactive with ads is huge, and that's going to be a differentiator, and we're continuing to evolve those products, and we'll continue to roll out more as the years come on.
Great. Sean, I'm going to go to you with this one. We have a little conversation here about specific category growth and types of brands testing CTV, but I'm going to go to you on this one because the second part of the question is very germane to what you do. Where do SMB and digital native brands fit here, and do they differ in how they view what you're offering?
I don't think so, right? Years ago, they would have, because we were, out of reach with the price point, speaking to how you create sponsorships that are right-sized for the performance marketplace. In the prep call, we talked about what brands or categories are really taking advantage of this changing landscape, and the answer is all, right? And it was incumbent upon us to make sure that we did that on our side, is that we made these offerings palatable for advertisers in this room attending this conference. Because for too long, it was that, there's the CTV strategy, and other competitors, other publishers were playing in that marketplace, and we were not responding with the right sort of offerings for DR advertisers. So what we have found over the last 5 years, and how we've evolved our team to respond to the needs of the marketplace, is creating opportunities for brands of all sizes, of all categories. And it runs the gamut, right? You expect automotive, the big verticals, pharma, but everything from that to personal goods to electronics. And a lot of folks who, like I said, your clients who are attending this conference today have found success on our platform, and that's why we formed the SMBG division.
Right. Marty, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, what we've seen that's changed, it's not necessarily the mindset. Like, we've always had a growth mindset for our brands, right? And so we work across every category. Retail and apparel, CPG are probably our biggest. We see FinServe, we've seen healthcare, we've seen spikes throughout the years, but it's always been about brands coming in, testing, learning, and scaling. I think a couple of years ago, more of that was, how do I test the CTV in the streaming space? I'm on linear, I need to test in other areas. Now everyone understands the audiences that are there, they know their KPIs, and they know what to measure. It's about how to now test within the CTV space. So it's less about getting the mindset of leaving linear to CTV. It's more about, how is this going to stand out, and how is this campaign going to grow upon the last campaign across streaming, and what's going to perform the best for me.
Right. John, you have thoughts?
Just, I think the big game changer has been the move towards impression-based and dynamic ad insertion. Right, those are the two real things that allow for small, medium-sized businesses and the more local-focused brands to run on platforms like ours, the ability to buy impression by impression versus having to run entire national spots, and then the ability to run those through dynamic ad insertion with all the digital tools, digital signals that are needed to measure alongside other digital strategies. But in this, national cable premium environment that a lot of these brands never had access to, right? So we're able to take a lot of brands from social, for example, and run them on, live sports. That was something that was never possible before, where you had to buy an entire national unit.
Right. I'm going to come right back to you on this. What kind of opportunities you're offering to your clients to create unified campaigns across both linear and CTV streaming options?
Yeah, so that's what we're doing now. So everything we have really technically is linear. We've got a vMVPD and Sling, and then we've got Dish, which is our satellite business. Last year, we released a product called Dish Connected, which deployed out DAI technology into our Dish satellite households. That allows for us to dynamic ad insert digital ads into households that are watching traditional satellite programming. And what that allowed us to do is combine our Dish and Sling footprints in a product called PerformXP. So there's a ton of fragmentation out there. Buyers have to deal with many more relationships and many more scenarios and platforms and data sets and everything else, than ever before. Even within our walls, we realized there was fragmentation, and our goal was to kind of take a lot of that away. So you're able to now buy across Dish and Sling. We allow for contextual targets, so you want to run along sports content, news, general entertainment, men's, women's SKUs, or take an audience approach. We want to reach, an older audience. We want to reach households with pets. Some simple audience targeting capabilities allow for us to really combine the full footprint with full digital signals, allow for all those signals to be available for targeting and measurement, and do it all through one point of insertion and one IO. And that's really gained a lot of traction in the performance space.
Great. Sean, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it starts sort of with the analysis of who's doing the buying and who's doing the selling. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that we had to do was right-size our organization and the skill set to allow for the same people who were transacting on the linear side to be able to do that in a digital fashion. So we had to do that. And then we found there are two schools of thoughts on the buy side. So aligning with the needs of the buying marketplace. When we look at it, it's not linear or digital, it's linear and digital, right? Because what you're finding is there's only about 15% overlap in the folks who are watching CTV and or only watching connected or traditional linear television. So when we put together a campaign, we're looking for that incremental reach, and we like to show how buying across the full portfolio of NBCUniversal, and oftentimes it's the same content, it's different endpoints. Mm-hmm. So if you are a Comcast subscriber, chances are you don't also have YouTube television in your household. So we want to make sure that we're accessing both audiences and creating the right sort of opportunities and campaigns to scale. So it's incumbent upon us to build these sort of solutions and bring them to the marketplace and demonstrate to advertisers who may have some trepidation about expanding that buy and the investment across linear and digital, and then on the back end, being a little bit more nimble about how we do that investment.
Right.
So that's what we've really looked at doing on our portfolio.
That makes sense. Marty, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very similar to both of you guys. Incrementality is going to continue to be king. We have a buy one, deliver everywhere mentality. So whether it's linear or across our streaming platforms, the idea of what are your KPIs, who are you trying to reach, and where is that viewer watching, and then how do you add either more incrementality or more impact to the buy through data and layering on targeting tactics. One thing that we're really big on is understanding the pre-planning process and being smarter about the tools that we have, combining them with the data points that you're looking to put into your buy. So if you're trying to reach an audience and we understand that, and the more that we understand that audience, the more power that we have in terms of getting in front of that consumer at the end.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to turn to something we talked quite a bit about on the prep calls, and that is the difficulty sometime now for clients to grasp where the best access points are to media. Marty, I'm going to start with you first, and where to transact, really. Mm-hmm. How are clients reacting to options like expanding ad manager platforms and programmatic DSP landscape, and how are each of you finding avenues to serve them through this evolution?
Yeah, I mean, the key for us is simplicity. We're trying to make buying simpler, right? Mm-hmm. So we enable all deal types, whether you want to come in on the streaming side at a direct IO. We work with 30 plus DSP partners. We've got Disney Campaign Manager, which is a self-service tool. So the idea here is, however you want to transact and whatever's going to work best, we're here for you. We're, completely interoperable with, understanding how to get your data, how to get your information, anything you want onto our service, and then how to execute that. We want to make it really easy. So we're invested in that. We've built out the tech on the back end to make sure that we're enabling that, and that's really the key there.
Yeah, I'm going to go to you next, Sean, then back over to you, John.
Sure. Like one of the things that we're really excited about, and a lot of our meetings have been focused on this week, is the announcement of universal ads, right? We have brought to market through Comcast one access point where now over 16 different publishers, including NBCUniversal, have an ad manager platform that allow hands-on keyboard, right? A lot of our advertisers still do want white glove service, and certainly we offer that. Interoperability is the name of the game for us, and that's part of why Comcast, working with Freewheel, is an access point for so many buyers in the marketplace to access premium content. But with universal ads, is just more working budget to be accessed and allowed to be on working media. Because when you're paying all these different tech taxes in between the advertisers, your agencies, and us, the media partners, it's greatly diminishing the impact of your ad spend. So we want to first be great partners in the marketplace, but then create a simple UI that allows an advertiser to have an access point where you can go, like any shopping mall, and say, look, if I want to buy sneakers, I'll go to Foot Locker. If I want to buy pretzel, I'll go to Auntie Anne's. But I have one destination to transact and build all of these different campaigns. They all look the same. They all have the same measurement tools. Bring your own data. And we create, again, the simplicity to be able to transact on our media.
Great. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, so a lot of platforms, a lot of ways to transact. We're agnostic, really. I mean, Sean, we worked together in 2015, 10 years ago. We were building an SSP.
That's when I lost my hair.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of mine. I had black hair before that. Yeah, we've talked to a lot of our agency and brand partners about, what the kind of what the ideal scenario is, and I think a lot of folks have like platform fatigue. There are so many platforms. Everyone wants to kind of have a smaller number of access points where to house data and access the breadth and scope of their plan and their publisher partnerships. So we've got a number of partnerships with all the top SSPs. We're DSP agnostic, and we're really focused on making sure that we're getting all the things in the pipeline to get legal approvals, the latest IDs that are required, clean room integrations, so that we can plug into all the data sets that our advertiser clients want to be activating on for targeting measurements. And everything else, and be agnostic to it. So we're playing, in the world that the agencies and brands are comfortable in.
Makes sense. Sean, I'm going to go to you with this one first. Agency and client mindsets are shifting when it comes to what they want for measurement on their campaigns, impression-based, response more. How are you addressing those concerns, and are there any new technologies, targeting tools, or other options that you're leaning into?
Yeah, certainly. To not beat the dead horse, but universal ads really does offer a lot of opportunity for measurement, right? Separately, we had a great partnership that we launched, I want to say a little bit over 24 months ago with Kachava that allows for real-time measurement, certainly when you're talking about CTV, app downloads, activations, web visits. What we found is we took for granted in the direct response marketplace that we could deliver a mass amount of impressions with one unit in a linear sense. And when you shift budget to a digital platform, now you're delivering millions of impressions over the course of that same time period, a week or so, right? So how do you translate the success, the mass lift that you get from linear TV when you're talking to direct response advertisers, particularly those of you who are manning call centers, for example, right? We're getting ready for open enrollment. And early days when we were having this conversation, how do we expand the aperture by which this investment's happening, not just on the linear platform, but including CTV? We found there was a gap in understanding, so we needed to solve for that. Kachava is one of the ways that we're doing that at NBCUniversal.
Marty, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit earlier about building out our ad tech and our tech stack, and that started over 10 years ago with our audience graph, right? So the touch points that we have across Disney are extremely powerful. So building the tools on the back end that take all those data points together and understanding who the viewers are, what they're watching and consuming is a big foundation. Now, evolving that over the last few years to build out a unified ad server. So now Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN, all being on one ad server, and now on the measurement front, understanding the ability to track campaigns and see how performance is not only affecting brands and what they're doing, but the ability to then pre-plan, like we talked about earlier. So it's about running campaigns based on the audience graph, understanding who's going to be watching, measuring those campaigns in real time, optimizing those campaigns, and then learning and seeing who was reached, what worked, and what can be done better next time. Those are all things we're continuing to evolve, and we're going to continue to build out those measurement tools.
Great. John?
Yeah, measurement's a big focus of ours. There's a wide range of kind of what the standard is today in CTV. And when we're talking to partners, I'm surprised sometimes to hear like how little is available, right? Things like where did your ad run is a question that a lot of folks can't answer. So we're drilling down and being sure that we're providing everything that is expected, right? What network did your ads run on? And then what data are we passing? What are the signals we're passing? What are the signals that you need, right? These are the conversations we're having today with brands and advertisers. Are you looking for contextual signals? Is it more important to you on where your ad ran? What type of programming did it run against? What networks did it run on? What time of day? Things like that. Are the audience signals more important, right? And then everything's based on that deterministic data. So we released a white paper yesterday at Adweek, and it was in partnership with Janus Partners, and it was using Nielsen, Innovid, MRI Simmons data in conjunction with our viewership data. And the difference between deterministic data sets and probabilistic is huge. They took a data set for an advertiser and analyzed it. It was an IP-based data set, and it turned out that 86% of those IPs did not resolve to the correct household. So when you're starting with data that's not reliable, there's no way you're going to have reliable outcomes on the measurement and on the back end. So, the signals are important. Having that input on the front end that's deterministic and a real one-to-one match allows for you to rely on data that's got integrity throughout the entirety of a campaign.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to sidebar off of that. How do we get to a point where that's not the case, where that kind of disparity, that break is not happening? How do we, this is straight thought leadership opinion from you guys.
That's probably a multi-million-dollar question. If you can answer that, You've got lots of brands, lots of very large brains trying to dive into that. Today, it starts with the basis of what it is, right? For Dish and Sling, we've got subscribers. So when our subscribers interact with our platforms, they're logging in, they're authenticated, they're billed to their household, they've got a login, a password, they're paying us with a credit card every month. And just from the basis of that is what gives us that ground level of data to build upon that has real substance to it. That's just not available on all platforms, which is that's just the way that the marketplace is today. But it's important to have a good chunk of your investment tied to these reliable data sets.
And I think when you're talking about the brands we're representing on stage, right? That's not a problem that you have when you're transacting with our brands, right? Same thing with Peacock. I don't want to speak for you, but same thing with Disney, right? We have pipes to the household. There's a credit card level transaction. We have the IP address. That's not where you have this, very opaque level of reporting and transparency, right? We look to have a certain efficacy in what we deliver. But there are players in the marketplace, and when we're talking to the buying community and they're saying, well, there's the quality for the content, right? If you want to run in the NFL, if you want to run an NBA program, there's a cost to that because there's a massive infrastructure behind making sure that we're delivering your brand, your ad in a quality environment, right? But when you're saying, well, an impression is an impression, we know that to not be true, right? And that's what the education of a conference like this has to be. That's what white papers should be delivering, is the understanding that in order to deliver in a quality environment, a brand safe environment, there's a cost to it, and you have to look at ad effectiveness in the right sort of environment. And I think that's what we really offer.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of just backing on some of the points made earlier, the accessibility for performance advertisers to now do that, and be aligned with that great content, but we can help find the ways to take your brands and put them in these marquee spots and live through DAI. But yes, it might be a little bit of a premium, but you're getting that great content, great quality, and you don't have to buy the massive unit that you might have.
Right. So what I'm hearing is great content, brand safe. Those 4 words. Right?
Yeah.
This is another topic we talked about a lot, and it's already been brought up earlier, live programming and its shift, across into the streaming world. I'm going to start with you, Sean, on this. What are you hearing from clients and partners about how the shift of live to a combination of linear and CTV is affecting them, and what are the biggest challenges right now for your outlets and the clients you serve in this new reality?
The biggest challenge had been, right, I wouldn't say it still is, but it had been making clients aware that there were access points at all different budget levels, right? And I think we first did that, for example, with the Olympics in the last Winter Games, when we started selling packages. But, if we go back 10 years ago, if you were not a rings holder and you weren't coming with $20 million of investment, Olympics were essentially off the table. What we realize is as we're scaling the portfolio and there's much more audience on our CTV platform, we have to open up the door to bring brands of all sizes to be able to partake in that. It's the same thing with our college sports portfolio. There are all of these opportunities week in and week out, and we have to make sure that brands, if they're looking to operate in near real time, how do they do that programmatically? I don't want to steal John's thunder, but we had the pleasure of some time ago when we did work together, bringing March Madness to the marketplace and offering that up programmatically, right? You had dynamic ad insertion for the first time in live sports. Some 10 years later, how are we doing that with these big ticket items, right? So we're in almost every environment, we're doing that on our portfolio. There are still some exceptions. I would say the Super Bowl, for example, where that shared viewership of the commercial at that moment, that's one of those things that, you don't want to mess that up just yet. But, creating these impression-based opportunities to come in and buy these big ticket items is really exciting for us.
Yeah. Marty, you're...
Yeah, like I said earlier, we sit at this intersection of live and sports and streaming, right? And so how do all those things come together? And live linear is not new, especially for Disney or any of us, but what's new is the distribution points. So take ESPN as an example. This summer we launched our new direct-to-consumer app. So for the first time ever, you can get ESPN directly through our app, and you don't have to have a cable subscription. That's a pretty big advancement, and if you think of the history of how you're always able to consume ESPN. So last night, I could pull out my phone. I'm here down at PDMI, and I want to watch Monday Night Football. I can now do that on my phone. I can then flip over to my app and understand how I just beat my friend Anthony over there in fantasy football this week, but all within the app, and then understanding video and having video in different formats is going to be important. So you got this live Monday Night Football game, and then later on in the night, I went to the app and I went to Verts, which is our new vertical form for clips. And unfortunately, I saw how the Yankees were getting crushed over the weekend, and the Jets still stink. But the idea is I'm watching video on an app, right? And it's this convergence of, wow, I was able to watch Monday Night Football. I was able to check a fantasy score, and I'm able to watch highlights catered to me all through this new distribution point for ESPN, and continuing to evolve that and continuing to make the consumer endpoint just a better experience is going to make that convergence of live and on-demand streaming so much more powerful.
That's great. I will say that this is one of the off years. Usually the Jets coach gets fired right around our show, and that hasn't happened this year.
I think he's got a little bit of a runway, but
maybe
we'll
next
see.
year.
Yeah.
We'll see. John, I'm going to start the roundtable on the next question with you. I want to let you have the answer on the challenges, but also what are the opportunities that you're seeing and being able to feed out to clients across folks in this
well, live is still hot, right? It's folks do enjoy watching live TV. We've had an authenticated, the Sling app has been available for a long time, and you're able to log in on a phone, a tablet, a computer, or your TV, and 96% of our subscribers watch it on TV. So we are seeing that folks do enjoy watching, long form live content on their TV in their living room still. And that's not to sugarcoat it or say there hasn't been subscriber attrition. There, of course, has been. We think that attrition has waned a bit, right? It's kind of stemmed off. Folks that were going to cancel have canceled, and folks that are still subscribed, and there are still a lot of them, they do use their services heavily, 4 hours a day. But we do realize that there's an opportunity for kind of a more nimble live approach, and with that we announced Sling Day Pass last month, which allows for folks to just sign up for a one-day pass to watch their live sporting events and things like that. When we first launched Sling quite a while back, we were the first to market with live programmatic, so that's commercial podded, impression-based ads in a live stream, available programmatically, which opened up the ability to run ads on cable TV to an impression-based advertiser that's primarily programmatic. So, I mean, live is still, it continues to evolve. We continue to see the capabilities increase. We've been seeing in the marketplace some folks that are offering similar offerings are requiring full footprint purchases like we used to do back in the day. We remain committed to impression-based and working with clients the way they want to. So we allow for programmatic buying against live sporting events, for example. And our clients are very happy with that. So the challenges also kind of turn to opportunities. One other thing to touch on is like the news conundrum. That's an interesting one. Have you seen news numbers? They're crazy. Like everyone's watching news, but so many brands are avoidant of news. And I think that's a huge opportunity for performance marketers, right? If a brand's concerned about, they have really very, very high branding standards. If you're a performance marketer who's looking to sell goods, drive web traffic, raise awareness of a product, or, increase clicks and calls, there's some tremendous opportunities in news specifically, but some other areas as well, where you're not competing against these massive budgeted, pharma and auto brands that are out there. So I think with the challenges come opportunities, and our team, Jamie, Alexis, Mary are here. We're all focused on diving into those, understanding our viewership. We know that you understand your customers, and combining those two things, comparing notes and finding the opportunities with our platform.
All right. Sean, Marty, on opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, live is going to continue to be a huge touch point. It's exciting. People want to watch live events, and so that's not going anywhere. Obviously, at Disney, we're going to double down on the content and the rights that we have to live events. I want to come up with a drinking game like you did, Sean, for 2027 for us, where in Q1 we've got college football playoffs, we got the Grammys, Oscars, and the Super Bowl all in one quarter, right? Like those are massive events, and it's really fun to think about the opportunity for not only performance brands, but all brands to be aligned with them. But where we really see the opportunity here is how do you expand on those events? How do you take something like the Super Bowl and make it a year-round event and have brands aligned with that? And how do you take live moments and work through social channels, work through other ways that we have other touch points across the Disney portfolio to really make those events even bigger and eventize them, and so you're in the moment and you can surround the moment, and we're really excited about that.
Makes sense.
I'll actually turn on its head. I think the opportunities in expanding this tent, that is performance marketing, that is direct response television. Our team has found massive success with brands that have never thought about advertising on the big screen in the living room. Net new to television advertisers. And I think redefining it, rescaling the opportunities, right-sizing these sort of packages has allowed brands who are only ever focused on social or search to think about this marketplace differently. It's an opportunity for every marketer in this room, for every agency, every advertising platform to onboard new brands. And that's really why SMBG was formed. And we think the horizon is the limit. It is really just bringing brands who have never been on television and saying this is the right sort of way to connect your brand. And as you're scaling, right, we started with brands that were direct to consumer. I think COVID only accelerated that, but the audience of TV is there. Traditional linear connected television or traditional linear TV, I think is definitely seeing some pressure and is declining. But what CTV is bringing to the marketplace, there is no shortage of impressions. The audience and the scale are massive, and there's a very bright future in video.
Oh, awesome. One last question from me, and then we'll open it up to the audience. One key takeaway, I'm going to start with you, Marty, since we started with you at the very start, and we'll come down the line. One key takeaway for this audience to walk out of with the session.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked a lot today. It's overwhelming, right? There's so many platforms, there's so many formats, technologies, everyone's competing for attention. So we're really here we want to cut through that noise. We want to bring clarity through our data, which we've talked about, simplicity through all the tools that we have to buy and execute. And then we want to have the power of our content stand out and align with those brands. So, we're going to continue to double down on those things and really try to simplify the process and make an impact for brands.
Yeah, I think it's more important now than ever for this to be taking place, right? Thanks, Thomas and John, for hosting the PDMI and creating a forum for us all to connect. I think with all the fragmentation, all the noise, all the intermediaries between us, it's more important than ever for us to have a direct, open, transparent line of communication open, right? Where we're able to connect with our agency and brand clients who know their customers, understand what their KPIs are and what they're trying to accomplish. If they can communicate those clearly to us, we know our subscribers, we know our platforms, we know our technology, and we know how to set things up for success. One thing to touch on that I think Sean mentioned earlier is, and I mentioned I think a year ago, but I love this saying. It's like in CTV, because of CTV, there's never been more fraud, but there's zero fraud in CTV. So what does that mean, right? When you work with us directly, when you do a direct deal with us, there is zero chance that anything fraudulent gets in the mix. If you're working with us through an outside source of inventory, for example, that's where problems come to be. So the more direct our lines are, open to our brands and advertiser and agency partners, the better things are for everyone. And this is a great forum to kind of accelerate that.
Yeah, I'll give you two takeaways. The first, content is still king, right? You are looking at 3 brands up here that represent premium grade A tier 1 content, and there's not a replacement for that. That's why the Super Bowl is Super Bowl. That's why everything is compared. This is the Olympics of, well, there's only one Olympics and we have it. And look, that's a strong position in the marketplace, right? It's a very
We'll have some too.
with our logo on it. But the reality is, right, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's the spirit and the message of Universal Ads. Continue to work with partners that want to have in this sort of, I think you mentioned it, Marty, this sort of interoperability. Folks that are looking for ways that really do rise the tide that lifts all boats. And that's really one of the things that NBCUniversal is focused on. In fact, it's our remit and our mandate. How do we do things that help the marketplace, that create ease of access to premium content?
Great. I'm going to let Monica get up and grab the mic. And if anyone has any questions in the audience, we have about 5 minutes or so.
Here comes the
take
tough part,
questions.
gentlemen.
Yeah. Nothing too tough. It's the end of the day. Anyone? Oh, Brett, you got one? Hold on, Brett. We need to get you the mic. Thank you.
Well, I'm a blowhard. I don't. So, gentlemen, on your live shows, your sporting events, and so forth, does that impact your performance-based advertisers? Are they more interested in the real time, what's going on? Does it impact individuals going to the website in between quarters or in between halves? How does that impact your live events?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the nature of the programming, right? For example, one of our big offerings on Peacock is European football. So as you know, in a 90-minute soccer game, there's no commercial break. So an L-bar or squeeze back, something that allows you to continue to watch the content and not have to break away from that experience is important, right? And we hear that all the time. We have this dual purpose of making sure the content remains engaging, is quality, but doesn't have a cutaway. I've seen you guys do excellent executions with Formula One, for example, where I'm a big fan of that. It's a challenge of there's no break for a commercial, but you want to keep the audience engaged. And with ad innovations, that's another thing that we'll be doing when it comes to the NBA, the user experience. How do we enhance that? The whole gameplay, change that using all the technology available. So it's a good question, right? Because are you going to, and you have to imagine, people are watching, they're not then going to pick up a telephone. So we know folks are watching sports with the phone in their hand. And I think that's a value add. It's not competition for the screen. It's very easy, and we've all had the experience. I'm seeing, oh, you know what? I've seen that billboard. I'm familiar with that brand. Let me go ahead and take a look at that. You transact, you earmark something for later. So I think it only enhances the opportunity to engage with the brand while not breaking away from the important content.
I think it's a good test environment too, right? Because, live TV, DR ads have been successful for years, right? It's like a 1-800 number in a dream, and you throw a, linear, schedule up, and folks would pick up the phone and call. It's a little different now where, you're measuring web activity and some other things, but there's a track record for it being successful, for sure.
Anyone else? We have time for 1 or 2 more, maybe. All right. Last chance. Going once, going twice. All right. How about a round of applause for our crew up here?